I'm Nina Lee Aquino. I am the artistic director of Factory Theatre. I'm also a freelance director and dramaturg. Sometimes a playwright, not so much an actor anymore. So first and foremost, my first kind of real theater experience was Carlos Bolosan Theater, which is Filipino-Canadian theater company. So I kind of see my career as kind of a ripple, like, you know, the Filipino-Canadian in me working with CBT. And then I founded a theater company, Fujian, Asian Canadian Theater Company, which is still the foremost kind of theater company dedicated to the development of Asian Canadian theater artists, who's now under the leadership of David Yee. And then I went on to Cahoots, which has been for, 30 years now, or almost 30 years, kind of the flagship diversity theater company in the country. So, you know, I kind of went there, and then now at Factory. So yeah, like the ripple of the ripples of my career in terms of the reach that my desire to really reach, you know, from myself and who I am, to kind of being an Asian Canadian, to being a diverse artist, to now being a Canadian, period. So, you know, that's it. For me, being in these theater companies and being able to reach more and more and more people, and being able to put my passions at a larger stage, so to speak, has kind of been the goal, you know. And so yeah, it makes, hopefully it makes sense kind of where I'm trying to go, and bringing the people on my back with me. I think it's important to not only state what your best practices are, and that means, you know, when it comes to inclusivity and being able to really cast the net to finding a whole range of people with a whole range of backgrounds and walks of life, is that it starts internally within the structure, so to speak. So I think that in a leadership role, me being a Filipino Canadian, they see that, you know, I'm an artist of color, so hopefully that inspires and that opens the doors for all artists of color to be able to apply freely here at Factory. And that's important. I think that, you know, you can keep touting and write out your philosophies on that, but if they see that, you know, the staff is made up of, you know, kind of the same color of people, then I don't think you're going to get the results that you want. For me, I'm really passionate about inclusivity and being able to really reach out to artists and potential employees that don't normally think that they have a chance at working here at Factory. But because it's me and they see me in this role, I think it allows for these artists and employees to actually come, and they think that it is possible. Because for me, they're my priority. And that's just natural, being who I am, right? So I not only practice inclusivity and diversity, I am that. The Canadian theater landscape right now, I'm probably, you know, I'm one of the very few artistic directors of color and artistic directors that are female. So already, I think, you know, it's not a specific anecdote, but the everyday struggle to prove myself and my company's worth under my leadership is a thing. Let's face it. Like, that is just, you know, that's still very much in I think entrenched in the way we think about women leaders. There's not like, why isn't there a lot of women leaders, let alone women of color leaders? Because it's hard to break into that game, and for the most part, I'm surrounded by what we lovingly call kind of the old boys club. And so to be treated seriously, to be treated with somebody with strong opinions, to be in a place of power is something I don't take for granted. But it is a struggle. But I will continue and to endeavor to be loud and brave, and stand up for what I believe in and what I'm passionate about. It can get really despairing at times, for sure, because you realize, oh, it's 2015 and we're still sometimes it could feel like we're still at this point where our stages are not diverse yet, the stages are not in full color yet, and so is, a theater administrative staff is not in full, so it can get really discouraging, but, you focus on the work and you keep going through the walls. So, it's also helpful to define diversity. And so I often say, yes, ethnicity, skin color, but that also includes gender, sexuality, class. That's a big thing, and I think that's taken for granted as well. So when we're looking for artists to nurture, to grow, like that next generation of artists and storytellers, and even emerging artists, established or veteran artists, I always ask them, try and think of the Canadian's experience in full color. Like, really don't bound your imagination in just kind of the typical conventional way. Like, really imagine your world in full color. When it comes to kind of, the overall messaging, when I became the artistic director of Factory, it was important that, when they hired me, or even before they hired me, that was something I put on the table right away, that, my priorities would be staging diversity, that I would be putting on the stages the Canadian experience in a very prismatic way. So those terms, we use in our mandate, in the vision. Again, the TTC bus kind of analogy has been kind of adopted by some of the theater artists here, because you can't, you can't tout being Toronto's theater community if what you see on the stage and your audiences and the staff, if it doesn't look like the inside of a TTC bus. That's huge, and that's really accessible to our general public to get an idea of the kinds of stories we tell here at Factory, and the kinds of plays that I'm interested in investing in, and the kinds of artists that I'm interested in investing in as well. I think the art of taking a risk is a challenge that you need your board and you need your audiences to really kind of fully embrace, because it is challenging, to do kind of a play, for example, that's typically like all the characters, for example, are set in, live in Nova Scotia, and the first thing you think of is the default would be like, oh, they're all Caucasian, because that is, for some reason, white is the default for most of directors in the city here. But I think that and taking a risk and kind of going, no, I'm gonna make this fully, like, again, the spectrum of color on stage. That in itself, the idea of like, oh, but will the audience get it? Or is it stretching the imagination too much? Or is it, and if the audience doesn't get it, will we get bums in the seats? Or will that turn away potential audiences because they don't believe that character, that Black Canadian actor is from Nova Scotia from 19 something. Like, do you know what I mean? So that is always kind of the fear. I think we're right now, fear is a big struggle. Because it's connected to box office, it's connected to money, it's connected to audience numbers, and you don't know if it's going to be received well critically, and also, will it translate to, good box office numbers. So I think taking the risk is a big issue. Luckily, I'm supported by a board that is completely on board with this vision of being able to stage diversity on our stages. And they're like, well, sometimes it takes one audience at a time, right? And it's educating and re-educating every production. It's challenging the notion of, what it is to be Canadian, that it's not just one color, one perspective, one facet, that it's it's prismatic, it's all colors, you know, but it's, again, a lot of our audiences are not used to that. And we just need to keep plowing through, and we need to persevere and you know, be determined and vigilant to keep staging the way we want to. Because sooner or later, again, those audience members are going to be replaced by a new generation of audience members that will, to them, it's standard. That color is the norm, you know. And there are lots of theater companies here in the city, like Young People's Theater, who do that already, have been practicing that for years, and have been a pioneer in diversity. You know, so they have a Chinese Canadian Alice for Alice in Wonderland, and the kids embrace that and love it, and it doesn't really matter to them, as long as it's a compelling story and the performances are fantastic. The story will get told, the message will go across. Well, there's not a lot of us out there. I think that is a big challenge. Like, sometimes, no matter how far I cast the net, there are just not a lot of artists of color are willing to step up, especially in the theater administrative side. You know, we have a lot of actors that want to be on our stages, but the people working behind, you know, producers, marketers, development people, like, that's still we've failed to nurture those kind of theater creators, and to me they're still creators, but just in a different division of theater. It's hard, and there's still far and few in between, and I'm not liking it. So again, it's about inspiring the next generation of theater administrators that will kick ass. And again, if we continue to, you know, if people see, you know, they go to my website and they see our staff, you know, being as diverse and inclusive as, you know, as we can be, then hopefully that'll give the future, you know, people who are thinking about going into theater business in this way will be inspired and be hopeful that they have a chance of working here with us. I'd love them to. It's just, where are they? You know, sometimes it's a challenge, and again, if they're not in the limelight, it's like, what's the point? How can I make theater a viable profession? You can. Like, I am living proof of that. And you know, so all I can do is provide mentorship, a sense of Factory being a training ground, a stepping stone, and that too is another challenge, in that, yes, you know, a kick-ass person can come in here of color, lots of potential, and then 2-3 years working here, and then they get snatched by a bigger theater company. So it's like, oh, you know, so, you know, sustainability is one thing, because again, the third challenge is compensation. You know, we're a mid-sized theater company with our own financial struggles. You know, theater, we already know, doesn't pay well. You really need to be here. You're here because you love it and you're passionate about it. And money shouldn't matter, but it does. And so we often do become a training ground, or kind of the first doorway into theater, and then they go off to someplace else that can pay them better. So yeah, I would say that would kind of be the third challenge when we do get the right people. Last season, which was our 45th season, all our productions that we presented 5, I believe, all of them were in partnerships with another theater company. And that was super important, because you know, with the way our theater scene is now, never mind in Toronto, but in the entire country, you know, with funding being cut consistently, and resources, money-wise and venue-wise, and being, you know, shrinking by the minute, partnerships and collaborations really play an important part, in not just for survival, but in order to really grow and thrive. And so last season, yeah, we partnered with awesome theater companies like Be Current, again, quite diverse. So I mean, again, in the partnerships, I look for sister brother companies that are in line and believe in the same things we believe in here at Factory. Because again, it's kind of like having two megaphones instead of just one. And their audience then is their reach, which is sizable, plus ours, then the net just gets wider, and their audiences can come into our building and become our audiences, and our audiences get to know their theater companies. So again, the sharing just becomes a little bit bigger, and that's important because again, being able to send that message out that theater in full color and staging diversity is, again, you gotta just have to do it. It has to reflect in your programming choices, and it has to reflect in your partnerships. And so yeah, like we decided for last season to produce diverse works, but also partner up with indie theater companies that believe in the same thing that we do. So again, cross-pollination, sharing of resources, not just money, but ideas on how to reach certain target audiences that we have per production. That's huge because again, our brain is like, we have our loyal Factory audiences, but how do we cultivate outside of that? Being able to, because again, we partnered with smaller theater companies, and all of them, or for the most part, are venue-less. Being able to be a home for these theater indie companies, which again allows them, the smaller company, to kind of, with our name, promote the shows that we were producing together in a at a larger scale. And the staff of that theater company and our theater company, being able to cross-pollinate ideas and have a great exchange of to-do lists, and which is important, but also the one AD and then me would be able to kind of exchange roster of artists to consider who to cast, not just on stage, but again, the creative team, the designers, or people that I didn't know are now on my radar, or vice versa. So yeah, I think the impact is huge and should be done more often, and not just for Factory, but the larger stage theater companies like Canadian Stage or Soul Pepper, they're starting to do that now slowly, right? Where they used to kind of be on their own. But again, with the climate right now for theater in general, the partnerships and collaborations thing will be more important than ever. At least in the city of Toronto, our theater community, we tend to be isolated from one another. I mean, we do talk, and again, it's starting now, but I think, a stronger networking of, artistic directors and general managers and business managers, I think can really benefit from a good dialogue of how to really make both on the stage and off the stage as diverse as a TTC bus. Do you know what I mean? And I think, again, we tend to go by our defaults. And for a lot of, the men that are sitting in these powerful positions that can actually make those decisions, their default list of people or roster of artists are really a reflection of who they were back in the day. And that list needs to change, and the roster needs to evolve. So I think that's one thing. I think having a dialogue with theater companies, in particular with leaders that are new to the game, like me, for example. I just kind of got started here at Factory, but also speaking with younger leaders and women leaders and asking for our advice and what we think, because then I have the power to recommend people that they might actually consider. Like, I have a roster of people that I think I can go, here's my list, how about you suss them out, check it out, and see who knows, right? Who knows? You can only try. I'm not a big, like, I don't know any books or any websites about it. Again, like, for me, I live it, so I take it for granted that it's second nature to me, and I expect that of my staff. But I think that for other people considering, it'd be great for them, again, to network and reach out to other theater companies that practice the same thing. And Toronto in particular, we have a great kind of array of ethno-specific theater companies, smaller than Factory, that I go to sometimes, for help. If I'm really looking to put out a call for auditions for a production and, my list isn't good enough, I will call the AD of Cahoots Theater Company or Obsidian Theater Company. That theater company, for example, is dedicated to the Black Canadian experience and artists, Native Earth Performing Arts, Aluna. So those are great living, breathing resources that people can actually, and we're good ADs, we're not snobs, we answer emails promptly, and are always willing to be there and take us out for coffee, have a conversation with us. And I'm always welcome. I have an open door policy. I'm always open to talking about what the scene is like here in the city, and what it is like to hire and practice inclusivity and diversity. So I think that's kind of my one thing that I would recommend is pick up the phone. Like, we're all Googleable in that sense. Pick up the phone and talk to people who are living that experience and practicing it on a daily basis. And again, create an advisory board of, artists, or, if they're theater companies. Like, again, there's something to be said about being able to call me or Marjorie Chan from Cahoots or Philip Aiken. Like, we're all connected in this community. And, I know that the Fringe Festival, for example, started up the culturally diverse kind of fund because they really wanted to increase the diversity of the people applying to the Fringe, and they got money to actually fund culturally diverse applicants. And so Gideon, who was the ED at that time, called me up and said, hey, I have a posting out, and this is a call for artists of color. I will be honest with you, I don't know if this is PC or not, if it's gonna affect, but I need help. Can you just read it over, guide me, tell me if, and he did this with other artistic directors of color as well to make sure. And sure enough, it's like we helped him. And now it's like, fourth year running that funding program, and it's been great. It's actually a great funding program that encourages more artists of color to participate in the Fringe, because again, there is this perceived idea that Fringe is only open to so and so, and sometimes the artists of color need that leg up to get into the Fringe and be inspired. So yeah, like he went and called for help. So again, if you're scared or when in doubt, consult. Ask for help. We're right here, and we are your resource. So I don't take offense to any of those. It's better to kind of be honest than be paralyzed by your fear of never knowing what to do. Like, how will you progress if you don't take the leap of faith and take a risk, right? Because again, I mean, you can have the one or two kind of the South Asian actor or the Chinese actor on stage, but when you read the program, you go, ooh, lighting designer was also culturally diverse, and the stage managers, like that means there's something holistic and well-rounded about that. Then we're not doing tokenism, then we're not doing like, okay, the One Asians cast, we're done kind of deal, because again, one is not enough. For me, it has to be 50-50 or 51% at least. So that's a way of measuring for me. When I program a season, that is my checklist. It's the 51 or the 50-50. So are there enough women playwrights? Are there enough playwrights of color? Are the directors, again, the key positions are usually also important to note, not just actors, but the power positions. Are there enough women directors? Are there enough directors of color? So that's kind of how I assemble and select my programming. And a measure of success is when people love it. When critically, the reviews are good, and it's either two ways. Either they don't highlight anything, the reviewers don't say anything about like, I wonder why they casted a Chinese Hamlet, or they do highlight it in a positive way. Then that's something. Then you can go, okay, this is good. We're going somewhere. There's a dialogue that's going to happen. And so yeah, critically, like if that's even mentioned or highlighted, and if our audience feedback is good and inspiring, and we have audiences that come out inspired and are talking about it. Again, either not specifically about like, the Chinese actor was great as Hamlet, or just like, isn't that a great actor who played Hamlet? Like do you know what I mean? That says a lot in terms of success. Again, if audiences love it and the box office numbers, it's a typical way of measuring success. I think that if we hit our box office targets, it says something for sure. Recognition in the community, if our particular company has been recognized with nominations for awards, I think I use that as a measure of success. Definitely not like an obsessive goal, but it's nice to be able to go, in my season, 5 plays were nominated for this and that, and if especially the plays that were highlighted again were, written by a playwright of color, or had a really big ensemble of actors of color, or our, Asian Canadian set designer was nominated. Like that's huge, and that means that we're doing our job well, So I think that's as far as I can tell in terms of measures of success. It's hard because art is such a intangible thing. I think that, it takes a lot of courage to be inclusive. Like, believe it or not, again, we're in the year 2015, and, sometimes I do question, like, why? Why am I, like, one of 6 artistic directors of color, or women artistic directors, So it means that we have a lot of work to do still. But, this is my 3rd year right now at Factory, but my 1st year as, the sole artistic director, I realized like, a lot of our practices right now currently run with, by extremely limited imagination and paralyzing fear that the audience is not going to get it, that they're not going to buy whatever, if you become inclusive and diverse. Fear that productions will not be good enough, will not be universal enough. So it takes a lot of guts to be able to, again, imagine running a theater company and putting on a show in full color. And so I say, well, put your brave face on and do it, and there's no other way to kind of be inclusive than to just do it. It's, that this is the right thing to do, so do it. So, you just gotta cast the net wider, or if you've reached the bottom of the barrel, go find another barrel,